Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Tonight we walk beside a man whose memory is a lantern in a city that has forgotten the word for night. He lives on the 7th floor of a building that leans as if listening. By day he shelves books no one opens. By evening he measures water for tea and turns the lamp to its softest vow. He does not call himself faithful. Faith needs an audience. He is careful. He handles names like moths. His grandmother taught him the old names from a cedar box that smelled of rain and soap. She said, "Speak softly, even gods startle." He learned the threshold god who stands between what you are and what you mean to be. The river god who ferries sorrow without charging twice. The sky before it learned a blue to wear. Years taught him other alphabets. Passwords, deadlines, receipts. The cedar box became memory, and memory became a quiet room. Yet some nights the names return like birds that still know the balcony. This night, the kettle hushes the room into listening. He places both palms on the table until waiting becomes prayer. He breathes the first syllable, not spoken, breathed. Breath is the oldest ink. The doorway deepens. The lamp makes a small gold lake on the wood. The clock forgets its pride. Something leans back. He does not kneel. He arranges the cup and spoon the way temples arrange altars, with ordinary tenderness. He carries the second name to the threshold in his mouth like water. The city outside misses a step. A siren reconsiders itself. An elevator pauses between floors to remember upward. "Are you there?" he asks, not aloud. The room answers by becoming truer. The table is less burdened by being a table. The chair is more convinced of its kindness. He rests his hand on the doorframe and feels the grain accept him. A small sorrow rises and discovers it can float. When midnight arrives without theater, he opens the box of memory and lifts the third name, the one that prefers questions to answers. It lifts him through kitchens that smell like forgiveness, stairwells that never run out of steps, and classrooms where chalk decides to sing instead of squeal. He does not speak. He remembers. Remembering performs its meaning without permission. "Is this prayer?" he asks. The room becomes a lake. Lakes answer with surface. In the coin of lamplight, he sees a face not made for eyes, a rival wearing patience. He looks down. Looking down is a kind of bow. "Then hear me," he breathes. "I remember." The coin light steadies. Somewhere behind the city's noise, a door unlatches. The city bows only to its reflections. Glass towers rehearse dawn. Screens bless themselves. People wear headphones like amulets against their own thoughts. Beneath the concrete, however, something older than traffic keeps time. He works the late shift at a library whose air smells of spines and second chances. Fluorescents make everything explain itself. He carries a candle instead. Titles fade, but when he strokes a book's back with 2 fingers, a sentence inside turns over in its sleep. Tonight the flame lengthens without wind. Dust lifts, not neglect, evidence of staying. A shadow stands beside mythology as if waiting for an apology from history. "Who are you?" he whispers, though his bones already know. The air answers inside him. "Do you still remember us?" His heart answers first. The names under his skin wake like constellations drawn in warmth. A book dismounts the shelf on its own and lands open at his feet. A figure carrying flame through a night made of forgetting. Below, a line in a pre-alphabet hand. Time trailed them, curious and careful. It was younger than it seemed, still learning that minutes are not soldiers to command but flocks to shepherd. Day taught time how to arrive. Night taught time how to rest. Between them, the hour found its accent, a cadence of wakefulness and hush, effort and surrender. "Walk with us," day said to time. "Learn the pace that keeps hearts brave. Sit with us," night added, "and learn the pause that keeps hearts gentle." Time sat and stood, walked and paused, began and bowed. And in those motions the first evening took its full shape. On the earth below, a city hung in that minute like an ember that won't decide to die. Lamps waited to be lit, Shutters hesitated at window's edge. A mother rinsed a bowl and held it a heartbeat longer, just to watch the rim catch day's final gold. A child counted on her fingers and decided the horizon was longer than numbers. Day leaned down. His light reached the city like a hand that knows exactly how much pressure kindness requires. Night lifted, laying a softness over noise until even the merchants spoke in a lower key. The city didn't sleep. It remembered how, at the sea, waves practiced their manners at the edge of land. Each arrived, touched, and returned, leaving a note that said, "We were here and it mattered." Day drew a long gleam along the curve of water. Night placed a star in it and turned the gleam into thread. Fishermen set their nets without hurry. They did not plead with the sea. They greeted it. A gull took the air and discovered it could be both gray and bright at once. The horizon approved and went on breathing. Day looked across the path of color to night. "What do you do with what I leave?" "I keep it," said night, and the answer was not possessive but custodial. "I keep the heat inside embers so morning will not knock on a cold door. I keep the outlines of roofs so dawn will know where to pour. I keep the ache so dreams will have something warm to hold." "I keep it," said night, and the answer was not possessive but custodial. "I keep the heat inside embers so morning will not knock on a cold door. I keep the outlines of roofs so dawn will know where to pour. I keep the ache so dreams will have something warm to hold." "And I," said day, "carry forward every lantern you lit when I slept. I make their memory into noon. I return what you protected." Between them an instrument tuned itself. Strings of distance, keys of hue, percussion made from heartbeats slowing, then steadying. The first notes felt like footsteps that know the path already. They came, not many, not few, to stand upon the ridge where the village met its fields. A shepherd, a baker, two sisters with flour on their sleeves, an old man with his hat in his hands. No one called them. The minute itself invited them, and they answered with posture. They did not pray aloud. They stood the way doors stand when windows are open, simply accepting the wind. Day kissed their faces with a warmth that forgave the day's clumsiness. Night brushed their brows with a cool that forgave tomorrow in advance. In that shared absolution, the people felt their names fit them again. A hillside of trees weighed fruit against branch. Day had swelled them patiently. Night had kept the sugars safe from overeager mouths. Now the minute asked for a verdict. One apple let go. It landed softly in grass that tasted like dusk. Others followed, not as surrender but as fulfillment. A child ran to gather. Night slowed her feet enough to notice the bruise already on one fruit's cheek and placed the gentlest cool upon it. Day made the red laugh a little brighter. Learning happened without lesson. Ripeness is a kind of courage. A sparrow, unimpressed by gods and schedules, rode the braid of air that rose from fields to stars. "Why do you stay?" Day asked. "Because here the world is not arguing," said the sparrow. "Up there the hawk is certain. Down there the cat is certain. In this minute, certainty rests and kindness works." Day considered the law by which he had risen all his life. Night considered the deep rule by which she kept watch. Both nodded. A sparrow had said a large thing in small feathers. The path of color led them to an arch that was not built but grown out of the meeting itself. It had no latch and no door. Passing through it required exactly one offering.
the willingness to hear the other without naming it wrong. Day placed beneath the arch his pride, the belief that brightness proved truth. Night laid down her secrecy, the habit of hiding the sharpest stars. They stepped forward lighter by those weights, and the arch rang like glass touched by a fingertip. Beyond the arch stood a house whose walls were the softest parts of sky and whose roof was woven from the first smoke of the world's first home. Inside, a long table ran east to west. At the east end, cups waited warm. At the west end, bowls waited cool. The table said with its length what words could not, both and in the right order. Day set upon the table bread still singing from the oven. Night poured milk that kept its night cold like a blessing. They ate without hunger and drank without thirst, as if the meal existed to feed the minute itself. "What are we making?" Day asked. "A place," Night said, "for what doesn't fit elsewhere." A river crossed near the house, broad-shouldered and unargumentative. It wore the last gold of day like a sash and Night's first stars like coins stitched into its hem. Frogs tuned themselves. Crickets arranged a rhythm. A single owl placed a low note exactly where the song needed weight. The river did not hurry. It had learned from mountains how to remember and from plains how to listen. Day and night stood upon opposite banks, and for the first time since the world woke, the river sang to both at once. Day looked longingly toward the east, where the path would carry him away. Night gazed west, where her work would begin in full. They were not jealous. They were reluctant to break the minute. "Will you come back?" Day asked, though he knew the answer. "Always," Night said, though she knew it would never be quite the same minute. "Because they need the song more than we need our separate thrones." The horizon exhaled. The minute stretched as far as it could and then kindly let go. They left the house of between together and stepped down the path, each toward the work that loved them. Over fields, roofs, orchards, and the unwalled hearts of those who had watched, they laid a blessing not in words but in timing. Day promised to arrive with gentleness where labor was raw. Night promised to keep safe what had been sown in hope. Between the two, the world found its pillow and its plow. When the last of day's light drew its line thin enough to sing through, and the first of night's stars dared to be heard, the song began. Not loud, not even audible, but felt, in wrists at rest, in shoulders setting down their loads, in eyes deciding to close without fear of missing anything that would not be given back. The song of the horizon did not instruct. It arranged. It placed each color where it could be loved, each breath where it could be eased, each step where it could be kept. And in houses and fields and along the decks of late boats, the people knew, without anyone telling them, that the world had learned to meet itself. When the sun sank low enough to hum, its warmth became something slower than sound. It wasn't gone, only folded. The light turned languid, brushing its fingertips along mountains and rooftops as if saying a long goodbye to everything it had ever touched. The sky did not darken. It deepened. Gold slipped into peach, then into rose, and finally into a blue that could remember heat without holding it. In that hue, the world began its transformation, not into night, not yet, but into listening. Somewhere between breath and hush, the horizon pulsed. Day, proud but tender, lingered as if unsure whether to leave or learn. Night watched, patient as a teacher who already knew the answer her student would stumble toward. Far below, At the edge of a quiet valley stood a house built not from stone or timber but from hue. Its walls shimmered with the residue of sunsets. Each window pane held a trace of mornings gone. Each doorframe smelled faintly of rain's first sigh. No one lived there, yet the air seemed occupied. The place was known among the gods as the house where colors sleep. Every evening, when the last ember of daylight withdrew from mortal sight, the colors walked home. Crimson arrived first, proud, perfumed with warmth. Then came amber, then lilac, then that soft and nameless tone that lived only on a lover's skin at twilight. They whispered among themselves, trading gossip about the day's display, about the way mountains caught fire or oceans flirted with turquoise. And as they settled into the folds of shadow, night entered, her steps making no sound. She did not knock. The house had been hers since the world's first dusk. She moved from room to room, drawing curtains woven from stillness itself. Everywhere she went, color softened, sighing into sleep. "Rest," she murmured. "You have worked enough for one day." On the far wall hung mirrors, not to reflect but to remember. Each mirror caught a glimmer of some forgotten noon, and each faded gently as night passed. Her touch turned radiance into memory, brilliance into belonging. But when she reached the final chamber, she paused. There, upon a low couch of mist and moon thread, lay Twilight, half awake, half dreaming, neither color nor absence. "Mother," Twilight whispered, eyes like the rim of a cup filled with stars. "Why do I exist, if all things must turn to dark or dawn?" Night smiled. "Because balance is the dream even the gods forget to dream." Twilight sat up slowly. Its form shimmered, not boy, not girl, but breath and hue together. Its voice carried two melodies, the first warm and golden, the second low and silver. When it spoke, the air bent closer, eager to remember. "I have seen them, the mortals," said dusk. "They pause when I arrive. They forget their wars, their hunger, their errands. They lift their faces and sigh. What is it I give them, mother? I am nothing but your shadow's prelude." Night touched dusk's cheek, leaving a trail of frostlight. "You give them time to belong to themselves. Day drives them forward. I cradle them inward. But you teach them to turn." Then from the farthest corner of the house came a soft tapping, as though someone outside wished to enter. It was Day. He stood at the doorway, no longer blazing, but clothed in the gentlest copper glow. "May I step inside?" he asked, voice trembling between apology and awe. Night inclined her head. "Of course. It is our house, though you seldom visit." Day looked around. The sleeping colors, the mirrors, the mist, the hush that trembled like music between notes. On the far wall hung mirrors, not to reflect but to remember. Each mirror caught a glimmer of some forgotten noon, and each faded gently as night passed. Her touch turned radiance into memory, brilliance into belonging. But when she reached the final chamber, she paused. There, upon a low couch of mist and moon thread, lay Twilight, half awake, half dreaming, neither color nor absence. "Mother," Twilight whispered, eyes like the rim of a cup filled with stars. "Why do I exist, if all things must turn to dark or dawn?" Night smiled. "Because balance is the dream even the gods forget to dream." Twilight sat up slowly. Its form shimmered, not boy, not girl, but breath and hue together. Its voice carried two melodies, the first warm and golden, the second low and silver. When it spoke, the air bent closer, eager to remember. "I have seen them, the mortals," said dusk. "They pause when I arrive. They forget their wars, their hunger, their errands. They lift their faces and sigh. What is it I give them, mother? I am nothing but your shadow's prelude." Night touched dusk's cheek, leaving a trail of frostlight. "You give them time to belong to themselves. Day drives them forward. I cradle them inward. But you teach them to turn." Then from the farthest corner of the house came a soft tapping, as though someone outside wished to enter. It was Day. He stood at the doorway, no longer blazing, but clothed in the gentlest copper glow. "May I step inside?" he asked, voice trembling between apology and awe. Night inclined her head. "Of course. It is our house, though you seldom visit." Day looked around. The sleeping colors, the mirrors, the mist, the hush that trembled like music between notes. "I did not know where you kept them," he whispered. "All that I lose you keep." Night smiled. "And all that I keep you return." Dusk rose and moved between them. Neither child nor shadow now, but bridge. "Perhaps you both forget," it said softly, "that I exist to hold the door open for you." Then it gestured to the far wall, where a narrow seam of light and dark met perfectly. "Here, speak where the world listens." They faced each other, two halves of eternity bound by breath. Day's hands shone faintly with the ache of labor, Night's with the calm of knowing. "I envy your quiet," said Day. "And I your certainty," said Night. Dusk watched, smiling like a painter's last stroke. Then trade, if only for a heartbeat. They did. Day inhaled stillness. Night exhaled courage. And for the briefest instant, both understood what it meant to be the other. Outside, the sky changed not in color, but in tone. The wind slowed. The sea mirrored the air's breath. Even the stars-to-be leaned closer. Inside the house, a table appeared, broad as horizon, long as longing. Upon it, bowls formed from the breath of clouds and cups molded from molten gold cooled in moonlight. Day laid upon it the fragments of laughter from markets and meadows. Night placed within each bowl the sighs of lovers and the hush of sleeping children. They feasted on memory itself. Every bite was a story, a farewell, a promise, a pause before storm. Each sip was a dawn that had forgiven itself for burning too fiercely. And when they were done, they did not thank one another, they listened. For gratitude is a soundless chord. From the rafters drifted a sound, soft, uncertain, but full of longing. The colors stirred in their sleep, glowing faintly, as though remembering some melody they'd once danced to. "What is that?" asked Day. "The song the world cannot finish," Night replied. "It begins when you rise and ends when I fall, yet it belongs to neither of us." They listened. It was the pulse of every horizon, the heartbeat of between. No beginning, no end, only movement that meant meaning. Dusk stood and opened its hands. From one palm poured warmth, from the other coolness. Both drifted outward and met in midair, forming a sphere that shimmered like breath on glass. "This is the sound made visible," Dusk said. "The echo of what was never said but always felt." Day stepped closer, So fragile, he murmured. Night nodded. That's why it endures. The sphere pulsed once and then dissolved, scattering into the house until every surface glowed faintly with its echo. The house itself sighed, as if relieved to have been reminded of its purpose. Down in the valley, mortals lifted their faces to the sky. They saw no gods, no shapes, only the blending of light and dark. But they felt it, a tenderness that told them they were part of the pause between labors, the rest between verses. Mothers slowed their hands in the washing water. Fathers straightened from their fields and watched shadows stretch kindly over their crops. Children pointed at the glowing seam across the sky and whispered, "It's breathing." The world exhaled. As day prepared to leave, he turned to night and dusk. "What shall we call this?" he asked. "This meeting, this mercy." Night looked toward the window, where the first stars began to pulse. "We shall not name it," she said, "for things that can be named can be divided. But let them sing it, in their own hearts." And so the house of colors dissolved, spreading itself across the world as the twilight we know. The time when eyes soften and hearts recall that they are not separate from light, nor yet from darkness. Long after the gods withdrew, dusk remained, whispering through generations. Painters would chase its hue, poets would swear it was a sigh trapped in pigment. And when lovers met beneath its veil, they felt an ancient voice hum within their ribs, a voice that said, "Be not day, be not night, be the breath that joins them." And somewhere, across every horizon still to come, that voice continues. It teaches skies to blush, seas to shimmer, hearts to rest, until all the world, for one tender minute, belongs to between. Night had deepened into a velvet vastness, soft, endless, breathing. Stars hung like the thoughts of gods too gentle to speak aloud. Across the hush, nothing moved but memory itself. In that vast stillness, silence ruled. It was not absence, it was presence, heavy with waiting. The winds dared not stir it, nor rivers wake it. Even time walked softly here, barefoot upon eternity. Yet within this silence, something stirred. A tremor so faint it might have been the heartbeat of the void. A memory, trying to remember itself. It was the night's first dream. The night, though eternal, had never dreamed before. She had watched mortals sleep, guarding their flickering breaths like candles. But she had never known rest for herself. Now, as the world hushed beneath her veil, she felt a pulse, soft, rhythmic, like a tide beneath her ribs. The pulse spoke without words. "There is something yet to be born within you." Night listened, curious and afraid. "What could be born from silence?" she whispered. And the pulse answered, "Sound." In the deepest fold of existence, there stood a chamber woven from shadowlight. It was the place where all unspoken words went to wait. Here, dreams breathed before mortals dreamed them, and songs hummed before voices were born to sing. The night drifted into that chamber. Around her, echoes shimmered, notes that had never been played, melodies forgotten by worlds that had not yet existed. She reached out, and the echoes clung to her hands like dew. They did not make noise, but their silence shaped her. It was then that Night understood. To hold silence is to hold potential, to be the space where creation decides to begin. It began as a tremor, a sigh too small to be called a word. Then came a vibration, low and slow, rolling across the vast dark like a thought learning its first form. The night felt it and wept softly, for in that trembling tone, she heard the first return, the echo of something lost to the day. The sound grew. It became not music but promise, a resonance that filled the void until stars leaned closer, listening. And when it reached the edges of the sky, the world exhaled, and the first dawn dreamed itself. Night looked down upon the sea, and there she saw herself, infinite, still, patient. But the sea was moving, rippling with the first wind. And in each ripple, light began to gather, faint, silver, searching. "Who are you?" Night asked the reflection, and the reflection whispered, "I am the echo of your dreaming." Where the two met, the horizon shimmered like a string being tuned. The ocean became an instrument, the surface its chord, the stars its rhythm, the wind its bow. From that harmony, color began to bloom. Not bright, not blinding, but a whisper of dawn. High above, the constellations stirred. They had never known movement, but now, drawn by the rhythm beneath them, they shifted, their lines forming a single shape, a great heart of starlight. Within that heart, a being awoke, neither god nor mortal but something older. It was called the Keeper of the Pulse. It spoke gently to the night. "You have dreamed what the universe could not remember, that even darkness must rest upon a rhythm." The night bowed her endless crown. "Then let this rhythm become my heart," she said. And so the pulse entered her, and from then on every night would breathe. As the pulse grew stronger, the stars began to hum. The hum rippled through the sky, through clouds, through the sea. The hum became color. The color became glow. The glow became dawn. But this was no ordinary dawn. It was the child of night's dreaming, gentle, luminous, shy. It crept across the horizon like forgiveness taking its first breath. The world stirred beneath it. Mountains exhaled their frost. Rivers shimmered with returning thought. And the first birds, still shaped like soundless wings, fluttered their throats, wondering what song was. From the heart of night came a sigh, soft, almost mournful, yet filled with relief. The sigh turned into a tone, and the tone became a note, and the note, a song. It rose like light spilling from shadow, each measure carrying the warmth of rest and the promise of return. Mortals, still dreaming, stirred in their beds. They did not hear it with their ears, but their hearts turned, sensing something vast and kind. A mother's hand loosened around grief. A lover's breath steadied against time. Even the earth stones, deep underground, felt lighter. For the first time, the silence of the world was alive. From that union of sound and silence, the horizon found its voice. It sang in languages that no mouth could form, tones woven from memory, light, and air. It sang of cycles, of endings that fed beginnings. It sang of the stillness that carries movement within it. And when the song ended, there was no applause, only peace. Night stood at the threshold between shadow and light. She looked at dawn, her child, and whispered, "You are not my opposite. You are my completion." Dawn bowed her golden head. "And you," she said, "are my silence, the breath that allows me to begin again." The horizon shimmered, and the two touched hands. From that touch came morning, and from morning the rhythm of all that lives. Before withdrawing, night spoke to the sleeping earth. Her voice, softer than fog, settled across forests and seas. When you wake, she said, remember that you are made of pauses, of quiet moments between heartbeats, of sighs between laughter, of peace that hides beneath every fear. And though no one answered, the earth listened. The night closed her eyes. The pulse she had birthed continued, steady, luminous, eternal. It beat in every leaf, every tide, every breath drawn by any living thing. It was not music anymore. It was existence. And so, every dawn that followed was not just the light returning. It was silence remembering sound. The dream of the night, still unfolding, in the hearts of all who wake. When the dawn withdrew and the day wandered into the high noon of its certainty, the world grew louder. But even within that brightness, silence hid, small and unassuming, tucked into shadows beneath trees, between waves, within hearts. As the sun began its long descent, the air itself seemed to sigh. Birds slowed their wings, rivers softened their roar, and even the mountains, ancient listeners, exhaled the weight of light. The horizon shimmered faintly, not as flame but as longing. For the world knew, soon the bridge would appear again. The bridge that no eye could see, yet every dreamer crossed. The bridge of sleep. Far above the mortal noise, the sky worked quietly. It was a weaver tireless and tender. With each dusk, it stretched out the threads of breath and thought, spinning them into a vast and unseen tapestry. Where day's final light met night's first shade, it began its work, stitching stars into the fabric of air, braiding wind and warmth into lullabies. The sky whispered as it worked, rest is not an ending, it is the shape of returning. And below, mortals began to feel it. Their limbs grew heavier not from weariness, but from invitation. Their minds folded inward, drawn toward the gentle hum that lived beyond awareness. From the center of twilight emerged a figure, tall, translucent, woven from the glow of every dream ever dreamt. It was Somnus, the keeper of the bridge. His voice was not sound but rhythm, the rhythm that beats beneath all thought. He walked between worlds, his steps leaving ripples of quiet behind him. Where he passed, torches dimmed willingly, songs faded into hums, and the wind, as if understanding, began to rock the trees. Somnus spoke not to mortals, but to their breathing. Lay down your burdens. The sky is wide enough to hold them. And so, one by one, thoughts uncoiled, regrets unclenched. The noise of the world folded back into pulse. It began as a shimmer over still water, a reflection that refused to stay still. Then, with a sigh, it stretched itself from horizon to horizon, woven from silver air and threads of heartbeat. This was the bridge of sleep, a crossing that asked for no footsteps, only surrender. Dreamers approached without moving. Their souls, light as dust, floated toward it the way leaves follow the river's thought. At its gate stood Somnus, smiling faintly. He carried no lantern, for the bridge glowed with its own mercy, and in his eyes shimmered the endless dusk, that tender space where endings turned into beginnings. The first to cross were the children, their laughter turning into drifting sparks as they entered the dream. Then came the old, carrying sighs shaped like stories. Then lovers, still holding the warmth of one another's hands, stepping together into the calm that waited beyond wanting. Each crossed without fear, for the bridge did not lead away, it led through. It carried souls not into darkness, but into the world behind the eyelids, where memory and hope sleep side by side. And as each traveler vanished into the glow, the sky sighed softly, feeling itself complete. Beneath the bridge lay the sea of forgetting, not cruel, not erasing, but cleansing. Here, every sound the world had ever made settled like dust upon gentle tides. When the bridge touched the sea, waves rose up to greet it. They hummed the melody of ancient nights, when gods themselves had needed rest. Somnus knelt beside the water, dipping his fingers into its glow. From each fingertip fell a droplet of dream, and where it landed, the sea shimmered with visions. A mother's whisper, a vanished friend, a promise remembered by no one but the wind. The sea murmured, I keep what must be softened, so that the heart may return to waking light unbroken. Above the bridge the stars began to speak. They did not shine, they listened. Their light pulsed softly in time with the breath of every dreamer below. To one another they said, Look, the world sleeps, and yet it turns. Yes, said another. Even in stillness, motion remembers itself. They hummed quietly, each a note in the great lullaby the sky had begun. Their music wrapped the earth like a shawl of soundless gold, warm enough for every restless soul. But not all slept. At the farthest edge of the world stood Zephyros, the wind who had carried dawns across millennia. He had watched 1,000 suns rise, yet never learned to close his eyes. He lingered beside the bridge, feeling the hum of the sleepers, the peace of their surrender. I cannot rest, he said, for if I still myself, the world might forget to move. Somnus appeared beside him. Then rest not from movement, he said gently. Rest within it. He placed a hand upon Zephyros's chest, and the god felt, for the first time, his own heartbeat echo the rhythm of the sleeping earth. And Zephyros wept, not from sorrow, but from the sudden beauty of belonging. For eons the sky had been the witness, never the dreamer. It had watched the turning of worlds, held storms and suns, but never known the taste of rest. Now, beneath the bridge's glow, the sky began to sway. Its winds slowed to breath, its clouds folded like hands in prayer. It closed its unseen eyes, and the constellations drifted gently into new shapes, not hunters or gods or serpents now, but the outlines of peace. And from its stillness, the sky whispered, Now I know, rest is the rhythm by which eternity remembers itself. When the bridge began to fade, the world stirred. The sea released its sighs, the stars opened their bright eyes, and dawn returned, soft, unhurried, grateful. The sleepers awoke slowly, not as those dragged from dark into glare, but as petals opening to the rhythm of light. They did not remember what they had seen, but their hands were lighter, their breaths deeper, their hearts more willing to begin again. Somnus watched from the horizon's edge, his task complete. He smiled, knowing the bridge would rise again each night, not as miracle but as mercy. Before he vanished, Somnus spoke once more to the wind and to the stars. Tell them that sleep is not escape. It is the door the soul uses to find its own home again. The wind carried his words across fields and cities, into windows cracked open to night air, and even those who feared the dark felt for the first time that perhaps it was not emptiness they entered, but the arms of something ancient and kind. And so each night thereafter, the world lay down willingly, and the sky, once restless, slept. Though unseen, the bridge endures. It hums beneath each sigh before sleep, each moment when the heart releases what it cannot hold. It is there waiting, between one breath and the next, between thought and dream, between day and the mercy of its ending. And each night, when the sky closes its eyes, the world remembers. Even gods must rest, and even silence must sing. Long before the first sunrise, before fire dared to name itself light, there was a sea that remembered every shimmer. It was older than wind, softer than silence, and within its depths lay something that glowed, not with brightness, but with longing. The old ones said it was the light that slept beneath the sea, the same light that would one day awaken and climb into the sky. But down in the quiet water, that light still dreamed, and in its dreams it saw a world above, one where day and night reached for one another but never touched. It dreamed of bridges made of twilight, of sleep as a song, and of the first horizon ever born. And the sea, keeper of forgotten mornings, guarded that dream like a mother guards her child's breath. When the moon wandered high and tides stretched their arms, the sea began to hum, a rhythm so deep the stars leaned closer to hear it. Each wave carried a memory of dawn. Each current whispered, "Not yet, but soon." Fish drifted slower. Coral pulsed faintly with a pale blue glow. Even the darkness beneath seemed alive, stirring with an ancient anticipation. For on the ocean floor, where no mortal eye could reach, something had begun to move. A pulse, a sigh, a glow that remembered warmth. It was the light still dreaming, and yet, somehow, beginning to awaken. When the gods first heard the hum, they thought it was the sound of the world's breath. But Thalassa, mother of the deep, knew better. She descended, her form made of moonlight and foam, and found the source, a faint sphere of fire sleeping beneath centuries of blue. "Child of warmth," she whispered, "why do you dream beneath water's heart?" The light flickered, answering not in words, but in feeling, a yearning to rise, a fear of burning, and a sorrow older than time. "I once was the dawn," it seemed to say, "but I fell, so the world could learn the dark." Thalassa smiled sadly. "Then sleep no longer. The sky has forgotten how to breathe without you." The sea brightened from within. Shadows fled upward in spirals, and for a moment, the abyss glowed like a reversed sky. The light expanded slowly, trembling like a heartbeat uncertain of its strength. Currents began to circle it protectively, wrapping it in ribbons of turquoise and silver. Above, whales sang low, solemn hymns that rippled through miles of blue. Each note seemed to call it by name. Each echo seemed to say, "Rise, remember, return." And so the light rose, not quickly, but with reverence. For it carried not just brightness, but memory of the stars that wept it into being, of the night that had once loved it too much to let it go. It ascended through layers of stillness and storm, through forests of kelp that brushed it like soft fingers, through ruins of forgotten worlds where time had drowned. Every current it touched shimmered in response. Every drop of salt became a tiny lantern for a heartbeat. Even the creatures of the deep followed in silent awe. The leviathan, the sea serpents, the ghost fish, each watching the slow return of something holy. At last, as the surface neared, the light paused. Above it waited the reflection of the moon, trembling like an uncertain door. The light hesitated, for beyond that boundary lay air, fire, sky, and the endless ache of becoming. But from far below, Thalassa's voice rose once more. Do not fear your own rising, child. The world awaits its memory. And so the light ascended, breaking the surface like a sigh released after eternity. 6. The birth of reflection. When it emerged, the world changed. The waves themselves bowed, the wind fell silent, and for the first time, night saw its own face mirrored in light. The moon wept softly, her tears scattering into silver rain, and from the union of her sorrow and the sea's awakening glow, the first horizon was born. It stretched between darkness and dawn, a soft, endless line where two opposites could finally meet. And on that line the gods stood and watched, their hearts quiet with understanding, that every separation exists only so reunion might someday sing. The light looked upon the night and said, I am what you dreamed I could be. And the night answered, then stay, shine, and let me learn to fade. 7. The whisper of return. When the first sunrise came again, it carried the memory of the sea with it. Its glow was softer, its warmth gentler, its silence more complete. The mortals awoke, feeling something they could not name, a peace that pulsed behind their ribs, as though the ocean itself still breathed inside them. And every dawn thereafter, when the sun climbed the horizon, the waves would shimmer with a faint echo, a reminder that light was once born from their depth, and that to rise does not mean to leave. For within every glow lies a memory of water, and within every dream lies a reflection of the sea. Even now, beneath all oceans, the echoes of that moment linger. A faint hum, a low pulse, a song that the waves still carry from shore to shore. It is said that if you listen closely at dawn, you can hear the sea whispering to the light as it climbs. Remember where you slept. Remember who held you. And the sun, in answer, rises not as a conqueror, but as a memory returning home. Before every dawn, there is a moment when even the stars seem to hold their breath. The sea lies still, the wind forgets to move, and the sky becomes a single, waiting heartbeat. In that silence, memory stirs. The light that once slept beneath the sea hums softly now. No longer lost, no longer dreaming. It remembers its descent, its sorrow, its rest, and the world remembers with it. Every grain of sand, every drop of dew, carries a faint shimmer of recognition, the knowing that something once fell only to rise again. It is not the first dawn. It is all dawns returning together. Far below, Thalassa watches. Her waves rise not in storm, but in reverence. She knows this moment, the trembling pause before rebirth. The light rises once more through her hands, through her reflection, carrying the warmth of the gods who wept it into being. And as it ascends, it dreams of the bridge of sleep, of the horizon's song, of all the places it has been and all the shadows it has loved. For every dawn dreams itself into existence. The world does not awaken because of the sun. The sun awakens because the world remembers how to dream of it. At the edge of sky and sea, a faint line glows, not golden, not red, but the color of awakening. The horizon hums, soft and slow, a chord so deep that mountains echo it through their bones. And then, from that quiet seam between worlds, light spills forth. It rolls like mist, gentle and endless, spreading through the folds of clouds, weaving its way into the still air like breath returning to lungs. Everywhere it touches, life exhales. Leaves uncurl. Birds stir. Rivers remember their voices. The world is being reassembled from the language of warmth. From within that newborn radiance steps Iocarus, the dawn-bearer, the spirit born from the union of sea and sky. His skin glows with the shimmer of tides. His eyes hold both sunrise and moonset. He carries no crown, no fire, no thunder, only stillness, and within it the strength to begin again. He speaks not to gods, but to time itself. You have circled me endlessly, old friend. Let us walk together once more. Time bows, and the world turns with renewed grace. Iocarus raises his hands, and the light spreads outward, not as command but as invitation. Every mountain, every wave, every heart accepts it. Cross the sleeping lands, shadows begin to thin. The last stars flicker like eyes opening after dreams too long remembered. In a distant valley, a bird sings. One single note, clear as glass. That sound breaks the stillness like a key turning in the lock of existence. And then the world inhales. Air rushes over stone, grass bends, and every living thing feels the dawn press gently against its skin. The night sighs as it retreats, but there is no grief, only gratitude. For night knows that it, too, is eternal. It will return when the world again forgets the rhythm of rest. The sky blushes. The first light touches the tallest peaks and slides down into valleys still veiled in mist. It is a river of gold returning home. In the quiet halls above the clouds, the gods awaken to warmth. Their temples, once dim, are painted with the trembling gold of renewal. Selene, the moon, lingers on the edge of the horizon, smiling faintly. She remembers when she cradled this same light in her reflection, when the sea shimmered with sorrow and sleep. Go, she whispers, shine, and remember the darkness that made you. Iocarus bows to her. Without your stillness, he says, I would never have found motion. The gods of sky and storm, earth and echo, rise beside her, not to rule, but to witness. For in the presence of dawn, even immortality must pause to feel small. The sun, reborn, blazes forth at last, not harshly, but with a warmth that feels like memory made visible. It climbs higher, shedding ribbons of color, rose, amber, white, and a hue that has no name but forgiveness. Every color carries a story, and every story is a light that once slept beneath the sea. As it ascends, shadows do not vanish. They follow softly, faithful and patient, knowing their turn will come again when day grows weary. For there can be no light without what remembers it. From the line where sea meets sky, a sound begins, the same melody sung since the world's first dream. It is the song of the horizon, and it hums in every language, in whale song beneath the waves, in the heartbeat of clouds, in the breath of mortals still turning in their sleep. It sings of the bridge that connects waking and dreaming, the seam that binds loss to renewal, and the world listens. Even the smallest leaf trembles with the music of becoming. The horizon gleams like a pulse between heartbeats, reminding all who see it that eternity does not move forward, it circles. In the cities of men, morning filters through shutters. Children stir, still caught between sleep and wonder. Mothers light fires. Old men stretch and remember names they once whispered in dreams. No one remembers the bridge, or the God who walked its span, but each carries the feeling, the deep, inexplicable knowing that something vast has passed through them. The light that fills their homes is not just warmth. It is memory made flesh. It is the proof that they, too, are part of the same endless return. When the dawn fully blooms, the music fades. The stars retreat. The gods withdraw. But silence remains. A silence that feels full, not empty. It hums faintly beneath the noise of day, the soft echo of the lullaby that carried the world through its night. Iocarus stands once more upon the horizon, watching the sun climb past him. He smiles, knowing he will dissolve soon, for he is not the sun, but the moment between its breaths. Before he fades, he whispers to the sea, "When I return, let me find you still dreaming." And the sea answers, "Always." As the world brightens, the dreamers rise and begin their days, unaware that they still carry eternity beneath their ribs. Every heartbeat echoes the first rhythm of dawn. Every exhale is a small release of light. Every blink is the closing of a God's eye and the opening of another's. For the universe does not end when we wake, continues to breathe through us. We are all bridges, all songs, all horizons between what was and what might be. And when night comes again, as it always does, we will remember this without knowing how. We will close our eyes and return to the bridge of dreams, to the sea that sings beneath thought, to the light that remembers where it slept. And so it goes. Night folds into dawn. Dawn folds into day. Day folds into memory. And memory returns to sleep. The horizon hums forever. The divine line between what ends and what continues. Somewhere a god dreams of waking. Somewhere else a mortal dreams of flight. And both dreams meet in the same place. In the soft gold at the edge of the world, where the sea and sky lean close enough to whisper, "I am you, you are me, and we are the breath that binds light to darkness."